Okay, everyone. So again, welcome to today's Work from Home Wednesday webinar on advanced facilitation skills for virtual meetings. I'm Dave Collins, founder and CEO of Oak and Reads. And if you're here, it means you've either heard about these webinars or you've come to the previous one. So I want to thank you for showing up today and for being present for what I'm going to, again, make an interactive session for you. We've already had a chance for people to chime in on the chat. And again, chime in on the chat if you have experiences that you'd like to share about really good virtual meetings. And share with us, please, what specifically made that virtual meeting so great. And again, put that in the chat, save the Q&A box for your questions, and we're gonna get to all of those at the end of the day today. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't wanna waste any time because we've got a number of people on the line that wanna get you some good information really quickly. Again, like with all these webinars, we're gonna go for right about 30 minutes. We're gonna shoot for 30 minutes of content. And then at about 12:30, we're gonna open up and I'm gonna start answering questions. So don't worry if you don't get your question answered right away. We're gonna do it at 12:30. Make sure all those get answered and then we'll get you out of here on time for your 1 o'clock meeting. So a little bit of background. Some of you may know this already, but I started a business called Oak and Reads, where we do interactive soft skill building and communication skills training. We have been working our tails off over these last few weeks, making sure we've been able to meet the demand for virtual trainings. All of our communication skills workshops we've been delivering virtually and have been doing that for years. We didn't just spin that up in the last month or so. So all these virtual techniques we're going to talk about are things we've been practicing and honing, both through our workshops about other topics and also just in teaching people how to work virtually. So we love doing stuff on Zoom. We love making things interactive online. And that's kind of at our core of how we do things interactively to get people to learn these new communication skills. Again, we work with all sorts of different companies. So if these are topics you'd like to bring to your teams or your people or your community, please let me know. I'll be sharing my contact info, but again, you can find us online at oakandreads.com. So here's what we're gonna cover today. First thing we're gonna look at is contingency planning. A great virtual facilitator is someone who not only is prepared when things go right and can really elevate the experience to an exceptional meeting, but also keeps that floor high, right? So a disaster doesn't become a humongous disaster because you've planned some backup plans to make sure you can at least still continue to connect when technology fails. We'll talk about that first. Then I want to talk a little bit about adult learning theory, which seems like a little bit of a left turn, but a lot of feedback I've been getting over these past few weeks. And again, thank you for your feedback and your thoughts on future topics because it's driving all of these agendas each week. It's really been an awesome two-way experience. I want to talk about how you teach adults, which I would imagine a lot of you, and I'm hearing from you saying you find yourself teaching your colleagues, your family members, your partners and spouses, maybe even your children, how to use these new virtual tools. And not just how to log on and how to unmute yourself, but truly, how do you get the most out of virtual collaboration? And you're probably finding yourself training people a lot. I'm going to talk about how it's different working with adults and talk about how you can adapt some of these adult learning theory best practices to make sure that these conversations aren't frustrating and you actually make sure you can help people upskill themselves on these virtual tools. And then I'm going to end today with some really simple tricks for facilitators. So to figure out how to keep your meetings engaging and productive. Almost think of this as a version 2.0 of what we talked about last week in terms of engagement. We're going to keep continuing to talk about engagement because that is basically your number one priority as a virtual facilitator is engagement. And we're also going to talk about little things you can do to make sure your meetings stay engaging and useful. Okay. So again, keep sharing those experiences in the chat. I love seeing those, and I think they're really helpful for other people. Again, we're all sharing ideas on these conversations. So one of the things I want to highlight in these chat and some of the examples is I loved what Carolyn was talking about with the GoToWebinar people, sharing some ways to keep interactives, chats, hand raises. And also, I think what Janina was talking about with giving people an opportunity to share what's going on face-to-face over video, even if it's just to check in about what's going on in your world. I talk about that in webinar 1 and 2. I think it's really, really useful. So again, keep those conversations going. I'm going to jump right into our first topic, which is contingency planning. Okay. So what do we do when our technology fails? Inevitably, technology is going to fail. I taught a workshop this morning where a person was dialing in from Los Angeles. They couldn't get their muting unmuted. They couldn't get their phone to work. I had to figure out, how do I make sure this person can literally just talk and hear us in the meeting, which is baseline. So I loved this thing that I saw online. It was posted on LinkedIn. It was actually a LinkedIn conversation that was reposted on Twitter from a professor who works at Berkeley, UC Berkeley here in California in the Bay Area, teaching physics. And he was sharing with his students, and again, this was in the beginning of March, you can see in the date, how he was going to approach teaching online. And so you can follow along with me. He's saying, don't worry, I'm prepared. The default method we're going to use is Zoom, just like we're using right now. Download Zoom, and we're going to join our courses, and it's all going to happen on Zoom. Great. Now, what happens if it doesn't work? Okay, step 2, if that doesn't work, we're going to use Google Meetings. All right, so we'll use Hangouts, we'll use Google Slides. That'll be our backup, and I'm going to send it out ahead of time. All right, so it's already a good backup plan. Now, he goes a little further, right? If Google Meetings doesn't work, I'm going to use a site called Explain Everything, which allows me to have a whiteboard, and I can just at least have a whiteboard and share that with you. You won't see me on video, but we can at least talk and use that. And then also, if that doesn't work, we're going to move to shortwave radio. So we can use the Mount Diablo shortwave radio station. Here's how you dial into my shortwave radio class. All right. And then if things go really bad, we're going to use APRS, which I don't even know what that is. And we're going to use Morse code. And so, and if there's a nuclear attack, we're going to be using vacuum tube based radios. So again, this is a little tongue in cheek. And he jokes here at the end, no matter what, it's not going to prevent you from learning quantum mechanics. So this is very much like an undergrad professor kind of joke. But the thought here is still really important. You need not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, 5, 6 levels probably of backup plans, especially for really important meetings. You can have some fun. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you go to shortwave radio, but having other things you can do. So let's talk about how you can build in those backup plans into your agendas so that when the meeting drops, when Zoom fails, you have everyone already on the same page and you don't have to scramble at that moment. So your best tool for contingency planning is to put those contingency plans in your meeting agenda. All of your virtual meetings need to have agendas. And the best place to put that agenda for everyone to see it is either in the email invite or in the calendar invite. So figure out what your backup communication mediums are ahead of time. That's so you're not making it up as you go along in the moment of crisis when you'll probably be most stressed out and you're short on time. So some good, simple backup plans in case Zoom fails. Make sure everyone knows how to dial in with just their cell phones, okay? Zoom meetings have a dial-in. You could even create a separate dial-in that's a different service in case all of Zoom goes down. In fact, I would encourage you to have a couple of those. There's freephoneconference.com. I might be butchering that. There's WebEx. There's a lot of free tools that are just phone. You can also say another backup plan is we're just going to have this conversation on Slack, right? We're just going to, just like we have a chat conversation in this webinar, we're just going to move this to a Slack channel, which is meeting backups. That's our Slack channel. Find me there 2 seconds later, and we'll be having this conversation. You can even have your backup plan be Google Docs. That professor talked about meeting on Hangouts, meeting in a Google Doc. You can have a chat conversation inside of a Google Doc. It's very simple. It's not as good as video, but especially if this is a meeting where you're reviewing a document, why not just meet in the document? It kind of sounds like Zoolander, right? Let's meet in the computer, but that's kind of what we're doing. You could even get weird with it, right? Why not meet on Xbox Live? Or you could send someone a Venmo and comment something. I was joking with some of my friends. We have so many different ways we can stay in contact with each other. Why not have some goofy or silly ones as your 3rd, 4th, 5th backup plan, just like we have shortwave radio? Again, be a little weird, have a little fun, meet your team where they are. And if this is, a young group of gamers, why not just hop on Xbox? You can do it that way. It could be kind of fun. So the other thing I want to encourage you to do is practice using these tools. You don't have to practice every single time you have a meeting, but just get comfortable, logging into Google Hangouts instead of Zoom, making sure all of those credentials are up to date, making sure you have additional accounts, maybe Skype or your free phone bridge service, making sure that you have those ready to go and you know how to log in, especially if you're stressed out because a meeting is falling apart. And finally, make this part of your meeting norms. So if you are, again, I highly encourage you to discuss the agenda at the beginning of every meeting. It doesn't have to take more than 30 seconds. Hey folks, it's our weekly team meeting. We're here to discuss these three opportunities. Also want to remind you, our backup plan in case this breaks down is the phone bridge. The login credentials are in the meeting invite. That way you've covered your bases. Just like every single time you get on a plane, they show you where the exits are, right? We really hope we don't have to use those exits, but they still remind you where the emergency exits are at the beginning of every flight. Because we're in a virtual scenario, I encourage you to do something similar to that. And again, have some fun. Just like Virgin America had a really funny song for that. You can have a little fun with this backup plan. Because again, this is not a life or death situation if your Zoom meeting fails, but it can cost you time and a little frustration if you don't have that plan clearly marked, and you can allow people to, again, follow the lighted signs to their emergency exit door. And so, yeah, put it in the calendar invite. And so I'm curious for this group, for people online right now, I'd love to hear from you in chat. What is your backup when video fails? Are you using one of these tools? If so, give me a why. If you're using something else, let us know. I'd love to hear from you. It's really useful, I think, to share what are some really simple backup plans when a Zoom meeting or a Hangout plan fails. Yeah, okay, so we have some great ones. Ring Central is a good one. Conference call lines, just calling someone, using Microsoft Teams or Skype, really, really good. Good examples. All right, let's keep going here. Ooh, FaceTime, I like that one too. So backup planning, again, really simple. Create your airline emergency video, share that at the beginning, get in the habit of doing that. Now let's go a little more theoretical. What I want to talk now about is when it comes to being a great facilitator, we want to know what it takes to really get into someone's attention, into an adult learner's learning wheelhouse. So when it comes to teaching adults, we're facilitating for adults. They're kind of the same thing. There's a really good amount of research on adult learning theory. So how can we adapt some of these tools? And a lot of what I pulled today is from this great book called Design for How People Learn by Julie Dirksen. We'll send that out in the notes afterwards. I didn't plan to share that, but this is really good information on designing adult learning materials. So the first thing comes from setting a positive tone. When you're teaching technology specifically, what I highly encourage you to do is remember what we talked about with feedback skills. Beginners versus advanced people. Beginners need a whole lot more positive feedback than people who are doing something at an advanced level. Advanced people, again, this goes back to webinar number 2. People who are advanced at a skill, they actually need constructive criticism because they want to continue to become experts. So they don't need to hear all the positive feedback. They know that. But beginners need to know what they're doing well. Even if they're only doing one thing well out of 10, remind them that they need to keep doing that habit. What that does is it both reinforces the new behavior and allows them to build confidence in something that they are not confident in. This is especially true with virtual technology. So much of this is just having the confidence to jump in and try something out and risk failure, because the cost of failure on a virtual call is fairly low, right? If you're muted, you unmute yourself and talk, right? The whole thing hasn't crashed. Another way to teach for adults, and this is something that I think you can apply in a variety of different teaching settings, whether you're teaching technology or you're teaching a new process to your teams, or even if you are taking some of the content we're talking about on these webinars and teaching people some remote work skills, is this idea of think, pair, share. And Athena's going to put in the chat right now a link to where you can learn more about this idea. But simply put, think, pair, share is a way to design a practice exercise. So when you're teaching a new topic, you want to share the skill, and then you want to give people an individual challenge first. So allow them to reflect on this new skill and allow them to do something on their own first. So again, giving an individual, and you're teaching in a group setting right now, a chance to say, okay, I want you to practice setting up a webinar, and then launching that link, right? Do that on your own right now. And then what you do is you then pair people up with a partner in a breakout room to share how they tackled that first challenge. So again, start by an individual, then put people in pairs, or I also recommend groups of 3 can be really good, because then if one person in a partnership isn't doing so well, you at least have a third person who can pick up the slack, and it's before you get to a much bigger group. And so allow people to kind of gain a little more confidence in their approach by hearing from a partner or 2 other partners and discuss. And then what you want to do is bring everyone back together into the main room to report back how it went. And the nice part about this is people will feel confident sharing, much more confident sharing, because they've had their ideas and their approach validated by their partners. So even if they're a beginner, they at least know 2 people have given them feedback on their idea. So they feel confident sharing in the large group. And what's important about this think, pair, share idea is it's especially important now that we're teaching everything virtually to use breakout rooms in this way. It's really hard for people to feel confident sharing when they are new to something and they're sharing in front of a large group. This allows them to build up confidence by trying something by themselves, then coming to that partnership with at least 1 trial, learning from their partners, and then sharing more broadly. I encourage you to adapt this in many, many ways. Happy to talk more about it offline, because I think this is how I design my workshops, using this think, pair, share framework. So another thing when it comes to teaching adults is this idea of the rider and the elephant. So this is a really interesting concept that I've been reading all about it because I kind of love it. It's this idea that adult learners are not like teenagers. They're not going to learn an idea for the sake of learning it. They need to learn an idea and immediately apply it. They need to see that application just a few steps ahead. Otherwise, they're going to check out. You know, a high schooler or a middle schooler, they'll learn something because ultimately there's going to be a test. They don't necessarily need to see the application. They're more conditioned to learn something for the sake of learning it. Adult learners, there's no test, right? There's no final exam here. They need to know, how does this help me right now? And how does this help me do my job better immediately? So part of this is from this idea of hyperbolic discounting, which I was an econ major, so I love behavioral econ theories. But essentially what this means is that, again, this is from Design for How People Learn, is adults prefer rewards that come sooner over rewards that happen later, even if that later reward is larger, right? So I want $5 right now more than I want $50 tomorrow, even though that $50 is going to mean a whole lot more for me. I don't want to wait, right? So it's hyperbolic because the longer you wait, the even more people discount the benefit. So as it comes to adult learners, you need to make sure they know how this new tool is going to help them in the meeting they have 30 minutes from now. That's most important. People do not want to hear, especially now when we're in such a change-heavy environment, people do not want to hear about some tool that they're going to be able to use in August. They will completely tune you out. So this is where the rider and the elephant comes in. This idea that every adult learner has 2 things happening simultaneously, thinking about a rider and an elephant. That's their learning mindset. And so I put a picture of a rider and an elephant. The rider is the conscious controlled thought, the part of their brain that knows, I need to eat my vegetables. This is good for me. This tool is useful. I consciously practice and learn this tool because I know it's good for me. But also there's the elephant, and just like a rider and elephant situation, the elephant is way more powerful. The elephant is the part of the adult learner that's just reacting viscerally. Gut feelings, visceral reactions, emotions, automatic systems, the parts of your brain that respond to bright, shiny objects. And the critical thing you want to think about as an adult teacher is you have to attract the elephant to get people's attention. The rider can only force the elephant to pay attention for short periods of time before the elephant will take over. Just like in this image, right? This person on top of the elephant, they can force that elephant for a few feet, but ultimately if the elephant's bored, distracted, not interested, they are going to walk whatever way they want to go. So we have to continually put these shiny, exciting objects, this food, the bright objects, the noises in front of our adult learners, because even though the rider knows this stuff is good intellectually, their gut feelings will get bored immediately. So how do we attract that elephant, right? What do we do to get those bright, shiny objects? There's a couple strategies. And again, highly encourage you to check this book out if you're doing a lot of facilitating. Athena's putting in some sample chapters as well. Elephants love stories. So again, story science goes to when a story is told to an audience and it's exciting and interesting, they can envision themselves in it. And in envisioning that story and being excited by the story, it leads to dopamine release in their brain. And dopamine release, again, dopamine is this brain chemical that is pleasure, right? A dopamine release is a good thing. We get that when we're excited, when we're watching a great movie or doing one of our favorite activities. Dopamine is tied to memory. A lot of studies show that. So the more exciting your story, the more memorable it is, and the more your elephant will pay attention and absorb some of the good content you're trying to share. Oxytocin is also a brain chemical associated with communicating and sharing stories. Oxytocin is something that I know I am sorely lacking right now. It's the love chemical. It's the chemical that binds people to each other through friendships and bonds. And stories bring that out in the teller and the audience. So again, if you want to build that bond with the audience, you can use story to release that oxytocin in their brains, and it helps connect them to you, the speaker. Oxytocin is something we're all struggling to generate right now because virtual communication reduces the amount of oxytocin that's generated through conversations. The same one-on-one coffee date you'd have with a colleague every week, doing that over Zoom, it's not the same. Different conversation, but still important to call it out. You can attract the elephant by surprising it. That's a simple one, right? Using dissonance. So even simple things like showing a slide with two pictures that are opposites with each other and using that as a way into your topic, people love that. That is candy to the brain, to the elephant of a learner. So surprising you with expectations, putting in front of the elephant interesting facts or surprising history notes or surprising applications for some of the tools you're talking about. Surprise is, again, another shiny object that keeps the elephant engaged. So these shiny things, even down to visual contrasts, like literally putting two photos up on a slide that seemingly have nothing to do with each other or showing before and after. It's such a simple trick, but it's so useful for, again, keeping people excited and engaged. Another thing that works for attracting the elephant is social pressure. So tell it all the other elephants are doing it. So that's where social learning and this idea of think, pair, share really has huge power, because once you pair people up and you see that your partners are also engaging with the content, that invites the elephant to literally follow along with the herd. Okay, so use some of those I'll call it peer pressure for good, in order to make it feel like learning this is part of what everyone is doing. So that's where setting team norms comes in. That's where reinforcing some of those habits comes in. Again, elephants love to follow in that pack. And leveraging habits is the last one I'll talk about. Talking about appealing to curiosity, giving people the habit of visual note-taking. That's something I've been practicing a little bit, encouraging people while they're listening to me on a webinar. Take notes and doodle and draw the information on a real, an actual pen and paper, actually draw that. Those habits help engage the elephant and appeal to their curiosity. So I'm curious for you, which of these attract the elephant techniques do you want to use? I think it's really fun to think about what's a habit you can appeal to with your family, if you're teaching your family, or thinking your team. What are some of the regular habits that you can tap into to think about putting that shiny object in front of the elephant so they don't do that hyperbolic discounting and ignore the good information you're talking about because it maybe takes longer than a few moments. So think about it. I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What are some of these ways that you're going to attract the elephant with some of the things that you want to do? Lucretia, that's a great one. Exercising during sessions. We had a stretch break at one of my virtual workshops last week. I love that idea. So that's, again, going back to our brain chemistry and our physical chemistry. We need to move to be good learners. And there are specific types of learners, like kinesthetic learners, that have to move in order to learn. Otherwise, they will never actually learn the idea. So in appealing to that, I think is a phenomenal idea. Great call, Lucretia. So let's get to our last section here before we get into questions, is things for facilitators to use, little tips and tricks. So what are some tricks that we can use to keep our meetings exciting, engaging, and productive? And these are all things that I am using every day now to keep people engaged. I had a workshop this morning. I'm going to be jumping off to one this afternoon. I'm constantly trying to make sure I'm keeping people on the ball. So thinking about how do you build in engagement triggers? We talked all about this last week, but thinking about how am I engaging and hearing from the audience every 5 minutes? That should be your baseline. If this is something you struggle with, I encourage you to actually set a timer. You know, you can literally just open up your phone and set a timer for 5 minutes, right? And then you set this timer, and when that thing rings, go ahead and ask a question in the chat. Make it up. But what's important is that you're giving people a chance to react and make this a two-way street. It's also really important, remember last week, put the engagement triggers on the slide. You're seeing me do that by saying chat, highlighting that in a color, and having the question there. That's again another reminder to do that engagement. Keep those shiny objects in front of the elephant. So again, lots of ideas in the previous webinar: chat, polling, cold calling on people, having breakout rooms, tons of stuff. We go into lots of detail. Physicality breaks. Lucretia already jumped the gun on this one, so I appreciate that. You're reading ahead on my slides. Having a break for 2 minutes to stretch. Having a chance for 2 minutes to lead someone through a breathing exercise. Giving people the note that you need to, in this 10-minute break, make sure you go get some fresh air and take a walk around the block if you can do that safely. Making sure we remind ourselves that we have to move around, because if you think about it, in the office, we're doing a whole lot more moving and walking than we are at our home offices. So to go from meeting to meeting, all we're doing right now is doing a couple clicks and going from one Zoom room to another. Think about at work in the office, you're probably going from actual room to your desk and then back to the break room. And then maybe you're going outside to get lunch and then you're coming back. You're just doing a whole lot more walking and moving and getting up. You need to find a way to replace that. So I'm curious, I've already heard from Lucretia. Again, my 5-minute timer basically just went off. What are you doing to add physicality into your meetings? Has anyone done any of that? What are some tools or what are some exercises you've had people do? I'd love to hear from you in the chat, or maybe there's a link that you have of ways you're adding physicality into your meetings. Again, folding a bunch of things in together. Also, how did that physicality go? Did it work well? I know Lucretia's mentioning it sounds kind of funny. Maybe some people resisted it initially, but you know, again, thinking elephants moving in packs, they see everyone else doing it and say, huh, I guess I'll try it. Maybe I'll enjoy it. Ooh, and Kana tried meditation. I love that. That's a great opportunity, especially in a team that you trust, to have a guided meditation, have someone lead through that. And Ruby has nature breaks. Ooh, tell us more about nature breaks. I like that. Oh, I think I know. Sorry. I know what a bio break, right? Going to the bathroom. Sorry. I'm a little dense today. All right. These are really good. So thinking about if you're the type of person that gets nervous presenting, I think it's really important to remind yourself of a couple things. One, anxiety and presenting virtually is still nerve-wracking. You know, it's funny that a lot of times people get nervous because they feel like they're speaking in front of a big group, and that's what makes them nervous. But also, it's still anxiety producing knowing that the group is behind the camera, even though we can't see them, right? You all are not in my apartment right now, but I still know that there are 25 plus people online. So that can make me a little nervous just knowing that. One way to do that, to combat that, is something I encourage in any in-person meeting, is you can focus on the people that are smiling at you. You do not need to focus on the people who are not looking at the camera or frowning, or even just the white text on black background for the people who have muted their video. Find the people on your Zoom chat, right? When you're going to the gallery view, you see all 10 people. look to the people who are giving you those nonverbal thumbs ups and keep going back to those people. Again, no one knows who you're looking at. So you can look at the people who give you positive energy and who give you a feeling of confidence, and just don't look so much at the people who are not giving you that positive energy and smiles. Again, I'm not saying ignore them. I'm not saying forget to call on them if they're not participating, but for you as a presenter, look at your friends. Look at the people who give you that energy. That's going to get you going past the rough spots. And another way to deal with anxiety and nerves as a facilitator and as a presenter is think of yourself as a facilitator rather than a public speaker or a presenter. So part of that is not just thinking, okay, I got to talk for 25 minutes straight. Instead, flip that. Start the meeting with interaction. Start the meeting with a question. Start the meeting by getting the people online to talk first or very early on. And that way, it's not so much, are they judging me for my content? It's more, am I making sure this two-way or multi-way conversation is going well? It's my job to sort of play traffic cop rather than just be the one person on stage and everyone staring at me. It's a little bit of a mindset shift, but it goes along with all of the ideas around interaction and engagement as the kind of holy grail, if you will, for making a great virtual meeting. So you want to switch your mindset. Again, switch it from how are they judging the way I'm talking to how are they interacting with me? And that gives you a whole lot more for you to react to and not just letting your mind run and thinking about, oh gosh, I'm not seeing a lot of smiles. I'm probably not doing well. Have a conversation rather than a presentation. So it's 12:36. That's our work from home Wednesday. So I know some people have to jump and I don't see a ton of questions, but now's your opportunity to ask some questions. A couple of cleanup items before we get out of here. I want to follow my own advice. I want to hear from you. How have you been using the tools from these past 5 webinars? I'd love it if you could share with us on social media, whatever your social media of choice, we're on all of them. Show a picture of your at-home work setup. Let us know in a post, how you've used some of these team values conversations or some of these facilitator tools or, your think, pair, share ideas. Tag it Work From Home Wed, as for Wednesday, and tag us at Oak and Reads. We're the same on all of our social media platforms. I want to hear from you. Let's have a conversation. Again, I'll post this online, video from today. Feel free to share it as widely as you want. This stuff is free and it's designed to, again, spark that conversation and help people out in a tough moment right now. We are constantly adding more information about remote working. We have new information up today on our Oak and Reads remote work site, specifically about virtual facilitation. So if you want more, check out that page. We're updating it all the time. And Athena has been doing a phenomenal job of adding information almost every day or every other day to that page. So it's going to look different if you went back there a week ago. We've got new stuff today. And our next webinar is going to be in 2 weeks. We're going to take a brief break just because we've been going full steam ahead for 5 weeks. We're going to take 1 week off and we're going to come back in 2 weeks on April 22nd. And you can sign up for that webinar right now. We're still designing what it's going to be about, but I encourage you, sign up for it now. You'll get the alert when we pick the agenda about a week out. And tell your friends, right? Share this internally, share this with your teams, put it on your company Slack, and let me know what you want to talk about because I am listening to you to help me guide what the next concept is and what the next topics are. Two-way conversation. All right. If there are no more questions, I am going to go ahead and sign off. But again, I'll stick around for a couple minutes if anyone has any questions, but it looks like we kind of answered everything that people were curious about. Again, let me know if you'd like to learn more about our trainings. You can email me, Dave at Oak and Reads. You can go to our website and get in contact with me. And the Zoom webinars are all available online. So again, thanks so much for coming today. Good luck with your virtual meetings. Let me know how they go. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. and I will see you in 2 weeks.